Hi guys, Marcus here. If you are interested in all things recruitment, give this a watch. I'm chatting to James Silverman from Hunted.com. Really fascinating story behind the guy that set up the business and the business itself. Hope you enjoy. Hi, it's Marcus here, Managing Director of Vertex Resourcing. I'm joined this morning to have a chat with James Silverman, the co-founder of a business called Hunted that's been taking the recruitment industry and the space by storm. It's fair to say over the last couple of years. Hunted, for those that don't know, is a unique information resource building and talent platform for the recruitment industry. And I'm certainly fascinated to find out a little bit about the story, how the whole thing has worked. So, where did you first come up with it?
Thanks for having me. Firstly, it was a pretty good description of the business.
Job for me, maybe?
Yeah, absolutely. So, a bit of background. So, I started out in recruitment at one of the major sort of multinational brands. Fell into rec in a traditional recruitment business, and just saw an opportunity to do things a little bit differently. And I think that there was always a sense that technology can play a part, I think, in the recruitment industry as it can with any industry. But I think back to where I started out my career, it was a very traditional recruitment environment, and it wasn't necessarily for me. And I assumed that recruitment was the same anywhere, and I think that there's never been so much diversity of culture, of environment, of just people within the recruitment industry. And we went to build a platform that gives people a lot more sort of career visibility. And I guess my experience in rec from the employer side, seeing this whole the industry is fragmenting. What started as a handful of brands 30, 40 years ago, there's now so many thousands of recruitment businesses. And for the smaller businesses who tend to have more ways of differentiating themselves and rewarding their teams, it was really hard for them to have visibility and to be able to communicate or broadcast that message to people at scale. So that's the premise of Hunted and how we started out as a discovery tool for recruitment professionals. And then it's starting to evolve now into, we run sort of RPO projects for brands and the product's moving, based on what we've learned, based on the feedback, it's changing quite quickly.
Sure.
So that's in a nutshell the background.
I mean, Hunted is literally everywhere now. I mean, we've come across it. I was fascinated when I first saw the Ed Hunter blog, which I guess is what my first experience was with it from the recruiter's perspective. But with the model, the getting onto the platform, the people you partner with, what was it like when you made your first sort of pitch call? Gone from the days of rec to rec and recruiter to sort of pitching a service. I mean, I remember mine, but what was yours first like?
It was funny to think back actually, because a lot of the clients that I'd done loads of work with, for my previous company, building a rec business, I was actually based out in Singapore for the last few years. A lot of them thought I was a bit mad because we had a good business and we were building it and we had a good reputation, and they were happy with the service that we were providing. Thought I was a bit mad to try and do something completely different that could have a negative impact on the existing, or what my previous role was. You mentioned Ed Hunter. That was our way. We thought if we're going to sort of build something, a marketplace model which is going to be reliant on having some good volume of recruitment talent on there, what's a way that we can build trust? What's a way that we can build an authentic message and look at galvanising the industry? And it's actually through that shared experience. What Ed does is a satirical take on the world that we all live. And if you can't, it can be challenging at times in recruitment, and if you can't laugh at that at times, then it makes it all the harder to get through. What's really funny about that, though, in those early days, my experience of dealing with clients was, it's actually easier now that we've obviously got traction and we've built a team and we've got lots of proof of concept. But it's easier now to get cash out of a business and get them onto the platform than it was in those early days of trying to go in, getting brands on for free as a starting point in order for us to attract those early users who are coming on to we were a mobile app in the early days. We didn't even have a website.
That's right.
Trying to convince businesses to invest time to build a great profile, that was so much harder than now that we're going out and actually trying to pitch the subscriptions and the obviously the charges associated with partnering Hunted. But yeah, it feels a long time ago now, but what's been nice is a lot of those early conversations where people were sort of questioning what we were doing or weren't sure about it, and now, being sort of customers of ours for a few years, and we've helped them look at their employer branding and the way they approach attracting talent very differently.
Yeah, fascinating stuff, really interesting story. I think if I relate this to, and I'm not going to bang on about Vertex, if I relate it to what I've done, and you think back over the years of getting things right and getting things wrong, but what's been your most memorable moment so far since launching?
You know what? It's really hard to focus on one moment. I think with any startup, with any business that you're building, I think that there's ups and downs. It's never as a positive experience or as rosy as you'd love it to be all the way through. But you need to focus on those little wins along the way. So whether it was the first paying client that we had, and remembering that day, or whether it's the really great one, or whether it's the first, candidate to have found a job through the platform, that was a great moment as well. But equally, what's really been amazing is a random message from a recruiter on LinkedIn who just discovers Hunted and thinks that it's fantastic and they love the content. That's really rewarding, and that's something that motivates the team. And even the small wins, moving offices. I think we've moved offices 7 times. We started in a shared space in Shoreditch, which wasn't the nicest environment, and I think we've moved basically every 6 months since then. 3 months ago, we took a big space where I think we can fit 40 in there in a loft in Clerkenwell. Like that, that's a real, all of these things are important moment. I guess I can't focus on one because you're always sort of moving the goalposts and looking at what you do. But even just thinking back to actually, there was an idea, and now we're kind of living it and it's working. That's been, it really motivates you and keeps you positive when you're facing all of those challenges as well.
Fair enough. I think this is the stock question any entrepreneur or someone that's founded a business gets asked. And when people ask this of me, I certainly can pitch in an answer that would take me the best part of a couple of hours, but we don't really necessarily have that.
Try and keep it.
But is there anything you would have done differently, or?
You know what? It's a bit of a cliche answer, certainly in the context of building anything involving technology. And we went out in those early days. Myself, Guy, my business partner, my co-founder, both 2 non-technical founders. Well, it's not really fair. Guy's technical. He runs our engineering team and he runs our product. He's not a coder by trade. He started in recruitment like I did. But we started out. We needed to go to an agency to build the product that we had in our minds that we were starting to map out. And no matter what we'd read and all the podcasts we'd listened to that warned you of this exact scenario, it cost more, it took longer, and we were really disappointed with the outcome of an agency building our product. What we should have done, or what, if we had been coders by education perhaps, then we would have built it ourselves bit by bit, incrementally, build your MVP, that minimum viable product, you iterate, you learn from the user feedback. And we were so burnt, it was a costly exercise for us, putting our own money into a startup at that stage. But then being able to learn from that, to build our engineering team, which now is just a fantastic asset to us, the speed at which we can iterate and make improvements and changes. So as much as it was a really, tough learning curve for us, and would advise people if possible, especially if they're looking at building technology into whatever their business is, try and, whether you're using contractors, try and build it in-house. Try and have real sort of close control over what you're doing. And don't go and get burnt by an agency.
Gotcha. Gotcha. That's really valuable. I can relate that to some of the stuff in a different context that we did, where it's a case of, am I brave enough? Or sometimes no. Sometimes you seek comfort in a third party, and whereas in reality it could work differently.
Yeah.
But that's really useful. I've heard that about.
Yeah, it's
I'm not the right person to talk about tech or coding, but I have heard that, and really interesting. Hopefully, good sort of sound sage words for people in that sort of space looking at it as well. This is an awfully cliched one, but I'm going to have to ask you anyway. Hunted in 5 years' time? I don't know.
I mean, I struggled with 5 months into the future, to be honest. You know what? I think we've learned so much along the way. We've developed our product and really diversified it. It doesn't look today. Our product offering, the makeup of our team is not what perhaps I predicted a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, at that sort of ideation stage. 5 years is a long time away. In 12 months' time, our product will look completely different. We're rolling out employer mobile apps. We're completely rebuilding the talent app this side of Christmas, hopefully. We're completely redesigning the product, the discovery, for talent who are coming on as the volume of companies is growing. That's something that we're conscious of really improving. Improving the user experience is fundamental to the roadmap and what we're building. Looking further ahead, I think, we want Hunted to be a touch point on the journeys of any job seeker in recruitment. Obviously, you've got to have a lofty goal. That's going to be a really important, target to work towards. And month by month, week by week, we're seeing improvements and incremental changes and positive outcomes, and that we certainly don't get it all right. First time round, you've got to learn, and you've got to be, looking ahead. I always talk to the team about living in the moment and focusing on the role at hand, but keeping an eye on the long term and the big picture stuff around what are the big picture company objectives. And I think if we can ensure that we're working towards that goal of recruiters, using Hunted, whether it's content and education or benchmarking or speaking to one of our talent advocates to learn about what's out there, downloading the app to be able to build a profile and get headhunted for a role, whatever it is, however they use it, we want to be a touch point for recruiters in the industry across the globe.
Fantastic. Finally, and just sort of conscious of sound of my own voice here, but going forwards then, in terms of someone setting up or thinking of setting up a business, any business, any words of advice, sound bites, James?
Look, it's a tricky question, because part of me thinks if I listened to people who were very forthcoming with advice in the early days, I wouldn't have done it, and I wouldn't have gone on to build a product. And we're certainly not there yet. We feel we're at the early stages of what we're doing. So, I'm not sort of sitting back and we feel like we're onto something and it's really exciting, but we're scratching the surface. I guess you need to be quite forthright in, if you believe in something, your idea, you need to sometimes ignore what's out there, but you do need to be really open to learning as much as you can. And, my education for going into something that was different, I was in a great position. Rectorate was a phenomenal industry that you lived and breathed recruitment. I saw, some incredible, inspirational people and leaders that I worked with that taught me so much. Equally, there's a lot of companies that aren't so great, or some average businesses out there, and you can often see what not to do, like any industry. But I think the challenge was then learning about this new world of technology and products, and building teams that don't look like a traditional recruitment team. And today there's so much out there. There's some incredible resources. We just absorb podcasts and so much free information out there through blogs and books that there's no excuse for not being so hungry to learn and fill any knowledge gaps. So I'd say it's that balance between be sure of yourself and your idea and ignore the naysayers, but equally sort of balancing that with you don't know anything, learn as much as you can, and that's probably the biggest thing that I'd advise for anyone else considering starting a business.
James, that's been absolutely fascinating. I would definitely share on the ignoring the naysayers.
Yes.
It's amazing that the pro advice of taking the leap is always slightly playing in less significance to the advice that is actually, I don't think this is a great idea. This can be so risky. Think of your salary. Think of the security. But
I think you need to be wired in a certain way. There's a little bit of to walk away from something that's good.
Yeah.
I always had that bug that you wanted to perhaps do something different, seeing the way that technologies are playing a part in different industries and wanting to explore that. I was equally prepared for it to the business to fall on its face within 6 months and get back into what I knew. I think you've got to balance it and be driven and focused on what you're doing, but aware. Make sure it's a half decent idea in the first place before you put the house on it.
Absolutely. But follow your dream, follow your convictions,
and
try to take measured advice. Sounds like great advice. Thank you so much for joining me, James. It's been absolutely fascinating to hear about your
Thanks for having
story.
me.
No, absolutely my pleasure. It's been it's been great to listen to, and I hope and wish all the best of continuing success to you and the team at Hunted.
Thank you. Cheers. Thanks for having me.
No problem.